you want to ask the questions of how will you use the space, when will you use it? Is it primarily during the cooler months? Are you going to be here year-round using the space, which will dictate a need for shade and some other considerations? Do you use it primarily at night or in the daytime? Who will be using it? Do you have pets, children? Some considerations for safety. Are you entertaining? There's a lot of factors to consider. So once you've decided some of those things, that's useful for your own planning and to give to a designer that could assist with that.
Early on, you'll have to consider what your dream is worth and how much beauty you can afford to buy.
Some other factors to consider would be what your budget is primarily. So this could determine if you're doing a lot of the work yourself, if you're going to do the work in phases, and what size plants you start with, for instance. Larger plants are going to be a little more costly, a lot more costly in some cases than smaller plants. In addition to budget, you want to consider what the aesthetic that appeals to you is. There might be a certain look. If you're out using the space year-round, you might consider year-round color, foliage interest. Are you drawing wildlife to the space? Are you growing edibles? So a lot of factors on what the aesthetic that you desire and what the use will be are really key to having a successful plan.
A successful plan that's designed from the beginning to complement the major existing structures and attractions in your yard.
Do you have hot tub and water features? Some things that might be a little more costly and that need some planning before you're actually designing around those features. So do you have hardscape? Are you installing a paver patio? Barbecue, seating features, large shade structures, things like that need to come into place first. And then we work down to trees and larger plants that might be much larger succulents, and then smaller shrubs, working our way down to smaller and smaller plants. And so we're working from the larger, more expensive in many cases, features down to some of the smaller, more manageable things that we could do ourselves.
But even the most inspired dream garden will never come to life without good soil and the right amounts of water for the needs of the plants in our arid conditions.
So when you're considering your soils, in many cases the plants are going to want a little bit of amendment depending on if you're going with full natives or if you're going with plants that might appreciate a little bit more organic matter. It really depends on your plant palette. But if you do choose to amend your soil, this can be done year-round really. And we can do this by adding compost, fully composted manures, leaf molds, things like that, turning the soil in. Adding that amendment any time of the year is fine. In most landscapes, 3 zones is a pretty safe amount to account for in irrigation. So we want to have a tree zone, a shrub zone, and then either a succulent zone or a turf zone or an edible zone. You just have to put things on the same zone that are going to have the same water requirements.
And planting a xeriscape with water-smart and desert-loving plants will be easy on your budget and your eyes.
Xeriscape can actually save you in a lot of ways. It can save resources of irrigation and maintenance. It saves a lot of time if you're planting wisely and putting the right plant in the right place. Sometimes they are going to be the best suited for a space because they are well adapted to the desert conditions, so you're not going to have a lot of loss. If you make some smart choices with frost tolerance, you can really well match them to a site and have very low maintenance, very low key, beautiful plants that also take very little of your time and use a lot less water than other plants could. So it's a really smart decision overall for a very beautiful landscape.
Of course, we can help you make that leap from designing to doing if you visit the preserve for a class or a tour of our own dream garden in the process of coming true.
The Springs Preserve is a great resource to actually find out some of the next steps that you need to take, whether you're starting from scratch or you have a little bit of experience under your belt. We have a lot of classes and a lot of hands-on workshops that we offer here that can really take you through all the steps that you would need, starting from the basics and working all the way through design and installation of plants in your landscape. But to know what they actually look like once they're planted and what they look like as a mature plant is very helpful. So coming to visit the Springs Preserve, other gardens and homes, and seeing what the mature plants look like in all the stages and phases of their life is really critical.